All right, guys, so we're finishing up chapter 4.3 today. So the last part of chapter 4.3 that we're going to be doing is writing an equation of a line that passes through a given point and is perpendicular to the given line. So when we look at this here, so we're given a point negative 3, 1, and we're told that it's perpendicular to the line y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Now, to be able to do this, one of the things that we will need is point slope form. We're going to have to use it again. Just like what we did with parallel lines, we're going to have to use it with perpendicular lines as well. So we're going to have to use this here for our perpendicular lines. Now, one of the things that the equation does give us is it gives us the point negative 3, 1, which this here would be our x1 and y1. And then we're going to use this line here. We're going to use its slope to find the slope of the line that's going to be perpendicular. So we're going to be using that 1/2. Now the first thing we can do is we can actually type in our point. So using this here, using this formula, because we can type in the point in our x1, y1. Now the y1 value comes from the point, and our y1 value is 1. So we type 1 in. Now our x1 value is negative 3, so we would type negative 3 into that spot there. Now the only thing we're missing is the slope. Now for this here, it says that it is perpendicular. The line we're looking for is perpendicular. And for us, when we have a perpendicular line, the slope of a perpendicular line is the opposite reciprocal. So if I'm looking for the perpendicular line, the perpendicular slope, it has to be the opposite reciprocal. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 1/2. Now because it's positive 1/2, so we change the sign and flip it, the opposite reciprocal. So since it's positive, we change it to negative. And then we flip it. Change and flip. So it went from positive to negative. Now we take the 1 on top and it goes on bottom, and the 2 on bottom goes on top. So 1/2 perpendicular slope, its opposite reciprocal, we changed the sign and flipped it, goes from 1/2, positive 1/2, to negative 2 over 1. Now negative 2 over 1 can really be just written as negative 2 because we flipped it. 2 divided by 1, anything divided by 1 is just whatever it is. So 2 divided by 1 is 1, and because it's negative. So the perpendicular slope to 1/2 is negative 2, and we can plug that into our equation. And now we're going to go about finding the equation itself and rewriting this. So this is in standard form. We want to write it in slope-intercept form. We want to write it in y equals mx plus b form. Now the first thing we can simplify and change is this here, our negative and negative. Whenever we have a negative and a negative and a negative make a positive. So we can change it from x minus negative 3 to x plus 3. Would be our first thing to do. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to distribute. Accidentally clicked on something. Here we go. So we're good. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to distribute the negative 2. We're going to multiply it through. So we're going to multiply everything by negative 2. So we multiply everything by negative 2. Well, negative 2 times x will be negative 2x. And negative 2 times positive 3, well, a negative times a positive would be a negative. And 2 times 3 would give me 6. And so we're almost done. We almost have it in y equals mx plus b form. The only thing we have to do next is to get y by itself. And to do that, we're going to add 1 to both sides. We're going to add 1 to both sides. And when I add 1 to both sides, well, negative 1 plus 1 would cancel out, so we get y by itself is equal to negative 2x. And our negative 6 plus 1 would give us negative 5. So the slope of the line that passes through the point negative 3, 1 and is perpendicular to the line y equals 2x, 1/2 x plus 3 is going to be the equation y equals negative 2x minus 5. And that's all we have to do for this here. So we're done with this problem. We found the equation of the line that passes through the point negative 3, 1 and is perpendicular to this line here. All right, guys, so we're going to look at another example of this here. So we want to write the equation of the line that passes through the point 4, negative 3 and is perpendicular to the line y equals 4x minus 1. Now, one of the things that we're going to need is our slope, or point slope form, this here. We're going to need this to be able to find it because, again, we have a point and we have the slope. Well, we don't have the slope directly. We're going to have to do a little bit to find it because the perpendicular slope are opposite reciprocals. Now, we want it perpendicular to the line y equals 4x minus 1. Now, they gave us the slope of the line that we're going to be perpendicular to, 4. Now, we don't care about anything else. We just want the 4. Because, again, we want perpendicular. So, since our line is perpendicular, the slope is going to be the opposite reciprocal of it. Now, we're starting off with 4, or, well, 4 over 1. We don't really write 4 over 1. We just write it as 4. But it is over 1. Now, the opposite reciprocal, so we're going to change the sign and flip it. Well, since the slope is starting out positive, if we change the sign, it would become negative. If it was started out as negative, it would become positive. So we change the sign and flip it. So the 4 goes from the top of the fraction to the bottom. The 1 goes to the top. So the opposite reciprocal slope of 4, its opposite reciprocal, is negative 1/4. So the slope of our new line is going to be negative 1/4. So now we have everything we need. And so we can type this in for each of our different parts. So our y value that comes from our point, again, the point here is going to be our x1, y1. So our y1 value is negative 3, and we would type that in. Now the x1 value is 4, and we got that from the point. Now our slope is going to be negative 1/4, this here. Is going to be the negative 1/4, and I'm just going to grab it from this here. Negative 1/4. I have to make a little bit of space for it. Negative 1/4. Okay. Now we're going to go on and simplify this down into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b form. Now the first thing I notice is that we have a negative and negative here. Well, a negative and negative make a positive. Anytime we have a negative and negative, we always rewrite it as positive. So we have y plus 3 is equal to our negative 1/4 x so this here, I'm going to clone it. So we have it here. So I have our negative 1/4 x, negative 1/4 times our x minus 4. Now again, we're wanting to get it in y equals mx plus b form, and just like we did the other day, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply through by negative 1/4. Now we multiply through by negative 1/4. Well, the y plus 3 is not going to change. It's still going to be y plus 3 equals. Well, one of the things we will have is that negative 1/4 times x is just going to be, well, negative 1/4 x, not s, x. Because they just multiply together, we just get negative 1/4 x. Now, negative 1/4 times negative 4, well, the negative and negative would give us a positive. And then what we're going to have here is 4 over 4, because we multiply by the numerator to the numerator. And we get this here. Now I'm going to simplify a little bit because we don't really leave something as 4 over 4. Now what we are going to have is that, well, this here is going to come down. Clone it. So negative 1/4 x plus, well, 4 divided by 4, anything divided by itself is 1. And we get this here. Now we're almost done. We still need to get y by itself, and there's something with y, and that is our 3, our plus 3. So to finally get it in slope-intercept form, we need to subtract 3 from both sides. We need to subtract 3 from both sides of the equation. And when we do that, negative 3 plus 3 will cancel, so we get y by itself is equal to, and again, I'm just going to keep bringing down this 1/4, negative 1/4. So we have y is equal to negative 1/4 x, and our positive 1, so 1 minus 3 would give us negative 2. So the equation of this line that is perpendicular to the given line, y equals 4x minus 1, and goes through the point 4, negative 3, would be the equation y equals negative 1/4 x minus 2. And that's all we need to do here to find our answer, to find this equation here. And we're done with this one here. And that brings us to the last problem we're going to look at today. The last problem we're going to look at, and that's this one here. So we want to write an equation of a line that passes through the point negative 3, 3, and is perpendicular to the line 2y equals 8x minus 6. So this one here is a little bit different because the line that they gave us, this here, is not in slope-intercept form. It's almost, but it's not quite. So what we have to do is we're going to have to change this into slope-intercept form before we can find the slope. So we have to do one more step. But one thing that we do need is we are still going to end up needing our point-slope form also. So we'll grab that here. So we have our slope point form. Now we just need to find the slope because we already have the point. So if we want, we can go on and type the point in for x1, y1. And again, our x1, y1 is coming from this point here, our x1, y1. So our y1 value is going to be 3. And our x1 value is going to be negative 3. That is coming from this point negative 3, comma 3. Now the only thing we're missing is the slope. Now to find the slope, well, it is perpendicular to this line here, 2y equals 8x minus 6. Well, it's not in y equals mx plus b form. So to get it there, we need to get y by itself. And in order to get y by itself, we're going to divide everything by 2. Well, 2y divided by 2 would give us y by itself, which was what we wanted, 8 divided by 2 would be 4x. And negative 6 divided by 2 would be negative 3. Now, out of all of this here, we really don't care about the negative 3. We don't care about anything else. We just care about its slope. Now, the slope for this here is 4. That's what we were wanting, because if I know the slope of the line that it's perpendicular to, the new slope, the slope we're wanting, is going to be the opposite reciprocal. So the opposite reciprocal of 4, so we're going to take 4, change the sign, and flip it. So since it's positive, the new slope, the slope we want, is going to be negative. And when we flip it, well, really this is 4 over 1. The 4 would go to the bottom of the fraction, and the 1 would go on top. So our new slope, the slope that we're going to use for this line, is going to be negative 1/4. And we have this here. Okay, now that we have everything in place, we have the point and the slope plugged into our point-slope form, we can go on and simplify to y equals mx plus b form, and then we are done. Well, the first thing I do notice is that we do have a negative and a negative. Well, a negative and a negative will make a positive. So we can just rewrite that. I'll just change it right there. So the negative and negative does make a positive. Okay, so we're good there. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply through by our negative 1/4. Our negative 1/4, we're going to multiply negative 1/4 by x and negative 1/4 by 3. So we do this here. So the y minus 3 is not going to change. Equals. Oh, we have our negative 1/4. Grab our negative 1/4 and move it over here, because when we do negative 1/4 times x, we get negative 1/4 x. And negative 1/4 times positive 3, well, the negative and a positive is going to make a negative. And 1/4 times 3 is going to give us 3/4. So we're going to have 3 over 4. So again, so we're closer to getting y equals mx plus b, so we had to distribute the negative 1/4. Now we need to get y by itself. In order to get y by itself, well, what we're going to do is we're going to add 3 to both sides. And negative 3 plus 3, these here will cancel, giving me y by itself, which is equal to negative 1/4 x. And here we'll do negative 3/4 plus 3. Now you can type this into the calculator, and the calculator will do it for you. And it will give us a positive. So if you do that in the calculator, negative 3/4 plus 3, what it would give you is 9/4. So the final equation, what we're looking at, is this here. Now I went on and typed it out here, so y equals negative 1/4 x plus 9/4 would be our answer. Now, as you can see here, not always, our answers won't always be whole numbers. We can have fractions as both the slope and the y-intercept, but this here's our equation. And that's all we have to do for this here. We found the slope. We found what the slope of the original line was. Then found its perpendicular slope, the opposite reciprocal. We changed the sign and flipped it and used that in our point slope form with the point. Got y by itself and found our equation. And that's all we need to do for this here. And that's all we're doing with this here. Now, you're going to have 4 assignments on this, or you have 4 problems on your assignment over this here, and it will be chapter 4.33. And one of them is going to be similar to this here, and the other, there's another one that doesn't directly give you what the slope is. And for that one, you're going to have to move the x. You're going to need to get it into y equals mx plus b form also. So it might involve moving the x over with addition and subtraction, and then dividing. And that's it. That's all we're doing for this here.